Hey everybody, who's your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking season 2 of Netflix's Daredevil show. And I'm going to try and keep this generally spoiler free. I'm going to probably talk about a few details here and there, but nothing that I think is going to affect your enjoyment of the series too much. But that said, again, there's probably going to be some minor spoilers here. So let's just get right into this. And I gotta say, I was pretty excited for this. Jessica Jones, while a good show, wasn't one that I found myself really eager to watch the next episode. Which, as I said in my review of that series, was not how I felt about Daredevil season one. With Daredevil season one, I was like, as soon as an episode was over, I was like, okay, yeah, I want the next one. And in general, that continued this episode. I mean, this season. I burned through it in about over the weekend, like 2 days. No, 3 days. I burned through it through 3 days because I kind of had a Stardew Valley binge on Saturday. But okay, whatevs. And this is something I was really excited about because I mean, we were getting the Punisher, and as you can see, and if you've probably noticed from the amount of the Punisher clothing that I have worn in some of my other reviews, I absolutely love the Punisher. He is one of my absolute favorite Marvel characters. And the fellow they cast, best known as Shane on Walking Dead, and of course I can't remember his name off the top of my head because I can never remember actors' names. Um, yeah, let's. He did a really great job. Let's kind of get right into that. That scene in the cemetery where he's talking about his past. I mean, that was just glorious stuff. I mean, I was just like, I mean, heartbreaking stuff. The only real criticism that I can really have of his take on the Punisher is that it doesn't sound like the way the Punisher speaks. The Punisher is not somebody who stumbles over words. But in all fairness, Frank Castle is on this journey to become the Punisher. He's not there yet. When we start the story, Frank Castle is just this messed up guy who's just lashing out at the people he blames for the death of his family. And it's not really, of course, like with Daredevil in season one, it's not really until the end of the season that he really culminates into being what we could properly call the Punisher. And the journey with him, it's not bad. I mean, the brutality that he inflicts is pretty darn good. Not as nasty as it is sometimes gotten in the comics, but still extremely visceral at times. And we see those little moments like Punisher makes kind of compromises his methods a little bit here and there, particularly um, in was it episode 7 or 8. And but again, he's not there to being the Punisher yet. He's not there with that 100% defined "I do this, I'm never going to do that" code that Frank Castle has. But yeah, just really the way that the Punisher was presented as this horribly damaged man. This the logical extreme, the next step up from where Daredevil was, and his philosophical argument with Daredevil. That whole scene on the roof, which was taken very closely from the comics. So there was one important difference between how that played out in the comics and how it happened on the show. I gotta say, I actually like what happened in the comics better, but still, I mean, if you're familiar with that scene from the mythology between these two characters, it was phenomenal to see that really kind of play out very close to what happened. And then the Punisher's big rant um, uh, about you know to Daredevil about his methods, and his relationship with Karen Page. Him like having this one connection with somebody who sort of who sees some humanity in him still. I mean, again, this is all very reminiscent of a lot of the classic Punisher stories. Punisher stories are usually kind of told from two perspectives. It's usually either the Punisher himself sort of narrating what's happening, and that's kind of one of the things that did bother me. The way the character speaks now and the way he speaks in the comics are are somewhat different. As I said, the Punisher is not somebody who ever stumbles over words. He speaks in a way that's very, very precise. But again, Frank Castle isn't quite there yet. I also have to say I wasn't 100% thrilled with that haircut, but having that very military style sort of haircut, I mean, it does make sense. Um, the other way that Punisher stories are usually often told is somebody sort of is another person who is involved with what's going on or in the story, and they narrate what's happened. There's also this outsider's view of the Punisher and the way other people react to him. And that too is also really interesting, just sort of depending on what kind of a person it is. And Karen Page in a way kind of acts like that here in this story. Um, Also cool to have Clancy Brown pop up in this series. Clancy Brown, I mean, the guy's resume as an actor, especially when it comes to comic book related stuff, is hard to top. I've loved Clancy Brown for years, ever since I first saw Highlander, and he was the Kurgan in that. And it was like, oh man, he's such a great villain. But yeah, very cool that the Marvel Cinematic Universe got to work do some stuff with Clancy Brown. That was right up there with having John Glover pop up on Agent Carter season 1 for me. Love John Glover, great guy, great actor. Um, so let's kind of move on. Of course, our other big character who's being brought in this season is Elektra. Now, Elektra is a character, I mean, I know the basics about her, but I've never read a huge amount of stuff with her. Out of everybody in this series, she's sort of the one that I feel the least connected to, simply because, again, she's not the character that I'm super, super informed on. What they kind of did with her seems does deviate significantly from her backstory in the comics. But again, it's just a matter of simplicity, tying her more closely to what's happening in the show, making her relationship with Matt more personal, more connected than just his old girlfriend, who turned out to be this like crazy ass assassin lady. So here it's just sort of streamlined for the sake of simplicity, and I'm okay with that. But Elektra's kind of walking that path of, am I a good person or am I a bad person? Well, in the comics, she does tend to oscillate quite a bit. It's really hard to tell whether or not Elektra on any given day is a good person or a bad person. So, okay, I can, I can get down with that. And the way that Elodie Young, amazingly enough, I remember an actor's name, phenomenal. The way that portrays it, I mean, well, I'm not 100% thrilled with that, but that's due in some part to some of the writing here, and not on the acting part. But the emotional turmoil that Elektra does go through, looking at herself and kind of think about her past and just sort of wondering kind of person am I? Who am I really inside? It's a reasonably well done journey. Daredevil himself, well, one thing is like, dude, you basically have seen some crazy stuff. Why are you so skeptical of this whole mysticism thing? That was one thing that really bothered me. And another one was that Matt's big journey this season was him realizing like, hey, this Daredevil thing, this is something that I have to be complete. Without it, I'm not me. And that's not bad. It didn't feel like that this being the journey that he was supposed to be on wasn't really driven home properly. It really just more felt like, wow, Matt's doing a really crap job of balancing being Matt Murdock and being Daredevil. So him kind of spouting this sort of revelation as he views it at the end of it, it's just like, oh, so you are totally compelled to be Daredevil. Well, gee, I never would have guessed that you felt a strong compulsion to be Daredevil and viewed it as an important part of who you were, based on all the other times you've gone out at night and acted as Daredevil when it really would have been in your best interest to just take a night off and get some sleep, or prepare to do your job properly the next day. So yeah, Now, the Matt Karen relationship this season, the episode where they kind of get together, that was really well done. I like that, and I got a kick that, judging by the flags around there, that happened in a Panamanian restaurant. Uh, but that only kind of clicks for me because I used to work with some Panamanians. But yeah, I mean, it felt like a very real relationship with somebody, a real take on what it'd be like to be in a relationship with somebody who has this superhero alternate identity that you don't know about, and you constantly have to deal with all their BS. Which, okay, points for that being done well. But there are other moments where it's like, Karen, maybe you really should give Matt at least a chance to explain here. Now, how this all ends up in the final episode, okay, that I did like. That was basically a very, very solid moment that I think kind of redeemed a lot of what we went through, but still doesn't take it away from the annoyance of having the journey getting there. It basically, that kind of idea stretched out a little too long. The idea that you always have to have enough big slams in the final episode can sometimes work against a show. Nothing really huge to say about Foggy this season. Although I definitely did like him standing up to Matt and saying, like, "Man, you have been a lousy friend and a lousy partner, and I'm sick of your BS." That was cool. I mean, he really tore Matt a new one, and Matt totally did deserve it. Let's see. Karen Page herself, we got to kind of give her some points. Her sort of career journey this season, I should say, that was cool. I kind of like that. Not exactly sure how realistic it is in terms of, wait, does she have like the actual proper qualifications for this? But it's something I can let slide. Uh, let's see. What else? What else? What else? Well, I did mention that I liked this season a lot better than I did the first season of Jessica Jones. And I thought about that and tried to think, well, why is it? What did Jessica Jones lack that Daredevil had? And one was that the humor was very different. Um, Jessica Jones is sort of that dark, snarky stuff. Here, it's a little bit more lighthearted. And Daredevil is is a series that's always balanced between very dark criminal elements and lighter stuff. It's kind of been pointed out that Daredevil is Bugs Bunny while Spider-Man is Daffy Duck. Daredevil is funny when he's winning. Spider-Man is funny when he's losing. And while Matt's not really the type to kind of crack jokes much in the way while he's fighting, it does sort of go there. When Matt is kind of on the up, that's and when the characters are genuinely feeling a little bit more positive, that's when they can do some good humor. And the fact that characters were actually happy from time to time in Daredevil, that was definitely a big departure. And I think that just sort of helped it a lot because Jessica Jones was at times a little suffocating in its grimness. I mean, it was intended to be noir and all of that, but you have to let in you have to let in some light from time to time. And a snarky comment, well, little humor is appreciated, but yeah, I think again, just sort of let somebody have a moment where they're genuinely happy once in a while. I know that might not be the most noir thing ever, but that's kind of think that's kind of what I think was the issue there. Let's see. Uh, my other big thing against this season is there's just stuff that looms over the entire season, even by the end of the season, is never explained. Like, what the hell is a black sky? Why is the hand digging a giant hole in the middle of New York City? And this is stuff that goes on for episodes, and by the end of it, we never get a proper explanation. It's just like, wait, it's the final episode, and you still haven't told me these things? Now, granted, some of the stuff it's implied might have to do with things that are going to be happening in Iron Fist. Remember, we saw the shout out to Steel Serpent in last season with Madame Gao's symbol. But again, it's just like, wait, it feels like there's really important stuff here that you haven't even explained to me in the slightest. And I just sit there and watch, and look at this, and it's like, okay, if you're never going to explain this stuff, why did you even introduce it in the first place? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a season 3 for Daredevil. There's no reason to think not, but seriously, you're just going to leave me hanging. You're going to have this mystery that goes on this entire season and not giving me anything that even approaches a proper answer by the end. I mean, if I got at least some basic idea, I think I could have been reasonably satisfied. And then like, okay, I've got a piece of the puzzle. I understand half of what's going on here. And then in season 3 or in Iron Fist, they're going to follow up on this and it's going to make sense. Here it's just like, what the hell, writers? Did you forget about this? Um, and let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, I guess I have to say though, I wasn't entirely satisfied with the finale for other reasons as well. With season 1, you kind of had the Kingpin looming over everything, and dealing with him in the season finale, I mean, it felt like, okay, that's where it's going. Here, you've got the Hand looming over stuff, and it is somewhat dealt with, but it just doesn't feel like a terribly satisfying resolution. And which is the complete opposite of what happened in season 1, where they take down the Kingpin, and it's extremely satisfying. So, yeah, was season 2 of Daredevil good? Is it worth watching? Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of great stuff in there. But is it as good as season 1? I gotta say, I kind of come down on the side of season 1 a little bit more. I think just having a more clearly focused storyline, and probably, and this is just me guessing, but I'm not being so quite beholden to next season, not being quite so beholden to whatever's going to be happening in Iron Fist and whatever's going to be happening in Luke Cage. That I think really played into the strengths of of season 1. Now, I am of course totally looking forward to Luke Cage. I am super looking forward to Iron Fist. They got Finn Jones from Game of Thrones coming in to be Danny Rand. There's talk of them having Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, uh, being part of the series, which would be really great because Shang-Chi is also a really fantastic character. But this a season of a show does have to generally, at the end of the day, be a fairly self-contained thing. Now, there were, of course, nods to the greater Marvel universe, a cinematic universe. You had the DA Reyes from Jessica Jones, as well as Jenny Hogarth, I think is the character's name, pop up. One really nice one was the biker gang, the Dogs of Hell. Well, they were first popped up on Agents of Shield. Here we see them again, which is apparently the New York chapter, I would assume. So, I mean, and there were other things here and there. But yeah, I think I've kind of covered everything I had to say, so I'm going to wrap it up here. So, yeah, until next time, folks. Excuse me. Um, As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. And until next time, take care and have a good one.